Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Piqued, a meetup for electronic music makers. I'm your host, Corey Luna, and on AV is Rich Hogben, the Willow to my Mad Mardigan. And today is Piqued number 40, and we are featuring DSKO and 6502. Each artist has created a music video tonight, and we'll take a look at DSKO first, and then 6502, and then we'll have a little group interview and chat and find out what went into these processes. If you're on the chat, please let us know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to ask our artists your questions. And let's go into DSKO. Rich, when you're ready, let's watch the first video. Wow, Danny, that was amazing.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Corey.
And let
Thanks for
me
having me on your show.
absolutely. And I apologize for pronouncing your artist name incorrectly. Could you please correct me?
Yeah, it's disco. No worries. It used to be disco, and then I just kind of simplified it, 4 letters.
DSKO. Excellent.
Yeah.
Really cool set, man. You've got some great melodies in there, little bit of beats, little light drums, really wonderful. And when you said you're a Tron fan, I could picture it right away. I was having images of Tron, of like Tron Legacy, of like just driving down a street at night on a motorcycle.
Yeah, for sure. I think just visually, I see between the lasers and black lights and all these different forms of light, the Tron aesthetic is sort of running through everything, almost like the Force. But yeah, I've got like black light on the glow in the dark cables from Modbang, I think is the name of the company. But yeah, I'm inundated with a lot of the Modbang cables. I think when I started out with modular, I started buying up all these orange cables from Control in New York. And so as a gag, I think they send me like a little orange cable with every order I place there.
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, a lot
Yeah.
have Control's one of my favorite patch cable companies. I've been buying up their what is it, the Videodrome style.
Oh, nice. You mean the ones that look kind of fleshy?
Yep. Oh yeah, the flesh ones. That's
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
they glow in the dark a little bit, but
Yeah. I think the test is when you put them under black light, like the ones that I have, I guess if you illuminate them, they just light up like it's pretty unmistakable and they look very Tron-like.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep into your set and everything, let's jump on over to our next set for tonight from 6502. And Andrew, thanks for being on camera today. And we're gonna take a listen to your set, and we'll get back to our chat real soon. Rich, please play 6502.
Satellites in the sky. Stars. Stars. Hendrix star. Hendrix constellation. Golden hour. Satellites in the sky. Stars. Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour. the sky. Stars. Hendrix stars. Hendrix constellation. Hendrix stars. Drone. Drone. Drone.
Load for R2 should be 01.
Over and over.
111. Hurry back over.
For love. For now. Hendrix stars. Satellites in the sky. Stars. Stars. Hendrix stars. Hendrix constellation.
Columbia, this is Houston on your last load in R2. We're requesting a 0 and 41. That is 01111. Over. Okay. And Roger, and you'll be enabling Squad Alpha and Bravo on Bravo SPS, so just disable Charlie and Delta. And we have a little less than 2 minutes to LOS. If you're still up, ALS next time around will be 114.04. Over. And Columbia, if it's agreeable with you, we'd like you to stay awake until we have one successful reactivation on the high gain antenna. And I guess you can plan on turning in shortly after AOS at next step. Over. Roger.
Golden hour. 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 Tonight. Golden hour. Forever and ever. Golden hour. Golden hour. Hendrix stars. Golden hour. DSKO to LA. Golden hour. DSKO. Golden hour. VCF to
Load
VC.
for
Golden
R2
hour.
should be 01.
Golden hour.
Hurry back over.
Golden hour. Golden hour. It's there. goes, nobody goes out. Golden hour. It's in. Golden hour. Golden hour. It's out. Golden hour. Golden hour. It's all of golden hour. Golden hour.
Columbia, this is Houston on your DAP mode in R2. We're requesting 0 and 4-1. That is 0-1-1-1-1. Over. Roger, and you'll be enabling Squad Alpha and Bravo on Bravo RCS 1 to just disable Charlie and Delta.
To hold, to hold. To lock, to lock, to lock. Forever, forever. Feel, feel, feel. Feel love, feel love. Breath, breath. Forever, forever. Tonight, tonight, tonight. For love, for love. For you, for you, for you. For me, for me, for me. Forever, forever.
Load for R2
Red,
should be 0-1-1-1-1. Hurry back over.
Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour.
Load for R2 should be 01111. Hurry back over.
Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour. Golden hour.
Right now, normal loader comes. Late configuration, I'm in that now. The RTS, before you wanted to load the down register to 01100, which makes sense and late picked only on quad A, enable all on quad B and CC off. I don't want that anymore.
Columbia, this is Houston on your staff load in R2. We're requesting 0 and 4-1. That is 01111. Over.
Okay.
Do you see me? Me.
passengers, we have a pictorial view of the moon. A pictorial view of where all the Apollo landings have been made. So that when this flag is seen again by others who come, they will know where it all started.
$65.02, everybody. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Great set, Andrew. That was really fantastic. So I'm curious. So you contacted me, letting me know that you had this set, and tell me about where this set came from. Did you perform this first at the Vancouver Synth Meetup?
Yeah, that's right. So the first song, Golden Hour, that's I performed that recently in Seattle at the Seattle Modular Noise. Fantastic event. Yeah, so basically I performed that live probably about a month and a half ago. And yeah, I really wanted to play it on this show. So I basically just recorded that over the weekend. Yeah. It's, yeah, thank you.
It's really good, man. Tell us about some of the equipment you're using, the synthesizers, and I'd like to know about the voice you're using in there as well.
Oh yeah, so basically, still consolidate on the Roland Boutiques. The last time I played, 2021 was it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was basically same equipment. I'm still believing it, and still getting sounds out of it. I really love, and so yeah, I'm just playing with that. So they're all the Roland Boutiques. So I think on that side was the Jupiter 8 JPO8, the SH101, so the SH01A. The TR09 909, and the JPO6, which is a new chord synthesizer. So the new chord synthesizer kind of did all the background synths, if you like. So yeah, that's pretty much set up, and some echoes and so forth. Yeah, and so yeah, that's the equipment. So just basically consolidate on those for a couple of years with the recent edition of the JPO8. J06, I forget his name, because it's new. But yeah, so just consolidating on them. And then the vocals is actually two things. So the first thing in the first song, a lot of the kind of the voice synthesis is really just like AI text to speech, and just experimenting with that. So I find it really interesting. So I've kind of been knocking around with that for maybe like a year or so, year and a half. I really like it. It's a lot of fun. And I really like the sounds you can get out of the voices. So pretty much AI voices, really. And then the vocals is actually my good friend, Jonna, who's a singer who lives kind of around the corner from me. And she's gracious enough to, every now and again, I have a track and I'm like, hey, would you like to sing over this? And she'll, of course. And she basically sends me some vocals and I cut it all up and put it on the sample and then just trigger the samples. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's the setup. But at some point, I actually been thinking, I should kind of drop the setup I've got, even though I'm iterating it a lot. Just kind of bring out some new sounds. So I actually have a Behringer Model D that I haven't actually used too much. So I'm probably going to start experimenting with that soon.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. Wow. There's a lot. You've got it's a wonderful setup. And the fact that you're using so much of the Roland Boutique line really shows with the sound. Like it's as one of our listeners tonight commented, it sounds very much like Roland, and as I just said, it's mostly Roland that we're hearing, and it really is totally beautiful. Danny, what did you think of Andrew's set tonight?
Yeah, it was fantastic. There was a vibe to it that you don't often hear in live performances or performances in general. It almost seems to capture an era, almost like I don't know, like late 70s, 80s. We get like this club vibe, but then a bit more sort of like psychedelic, kind of like, I don't know, the Orb, somewhere in that era. I guess that's quite a bit later than the 70s, but it was, it really puts your mind in a pretty interesting place, very relaxed, and with all the visuals, it was just almost like bombarding the senses with all these nonstop visuals and, morphing the colors. And then you have like these almost like raindrops coming down over the visuals, superimposed over everything. There's a lot going on. A lot of work.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad
You're
you liked it.
welcome.
It's great. I love your set also.
Oh, thank you.
Before we get into the visuals of you, Andrew, let's jump on over to and Danny. Tell us about your set tonight. I know you had some issues. Tell us about your setup with the hiccups that happened.
Yeah. So I think going into this patch and the set, I wanted to experiment a bit more with the qubit surfaces because I like the sort of plucked sounds from the surface, and I thought that if I had two and I had one on a different octave range, I could simulate more of like a chord type of progression, but with synthesizers. So what was I think an important part of that approach was getting the tessitura. I think what's it called? The tessitura Taylor, and I put the CV going through the tessitura Taylor from ShackMat so that I could manually adjust the octaves as they were coming from whichever sequencer I ended up working with. So I started out with the Metropolis as the sequencer, but then I ended up using a KeyStep Pro because I felt like I wanted more spontaneity in terms of what I could do with the clock divisions to accelerate or decelerate, change the tempo, and also to manually play if I wanted to. So there was a lot of things that I tried to do going into it, but then I think there were three distinct parts of the patch. And so in the beginning, I started off with Modbap Trinity as the percussion source going through the qubit Nautilus. And so that sufficiently, did this bit reduction, some interesting effects. And then I used micro elements to get like this really massive sound with the ambient sounds, which was being sequenced by Renee. And then I think to progress out of that, I had the vector, the RYK vector, vector wave. Is that what it's officially called? I can't remember. Yeah, vector wave. And that was supplying the sort of rumbly bass sound. And then I had, this rample beat come in with grids, and I was, I ran out of cables, and so I didn't have my M185 sequencer, which was sequencing the vector wave, synced. And so I thought it would be fun to try to manually sync it, but it took a while before I kind of got it in rhythm. And so that was sort of like I don't know if it was entirely successful experiment, but I think eventually there was an interesting groove to it. And then coming out of that, I wanted to have like a nice conclusion and third part of the patch, which was a bit more elaborate, where I had the poly cinematic from Nobula doing like an organ sound with like three note chords, and then that's where I was using the qubit surfaces, the two surfaces, to do more like these pluck sounds, and then the left surface I was using with like this square wave sound that had more like a little bit of a spacey sound to it, and that was something that I kept changing the clock divisions on, and that was all going through Magneto. So there was a lot of stuff that I did in the last 3 or 4 days. It all just kind of happened very fast. And 3 or 4 days ago, that's when I walked down into my basement, and it was like covered in water. Like the floor was covered in about an inch of water. And this table full of Eurorack gear, underneath the table in the basement, it was just in water. And so I was trying to figure out how I was going to get to the point where I could record a set. and so I moved everything up to the kitchen table, and you know, I really focused for the last couple of days to put it all together, and yeah, I'm glad that I was able to pull it off at the last minute, getting the files uploaded, maybe a couple hours before the show started.
I'm really glad it worked out. When you sent me those photos, that video the other day of your basement flooded, I was scared for you. And if you needed to reschedule, it's like it was totally understood if you needed to. But I'm really glad you were able to pull through. And sounds like none of your musical equipment was damaged.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure because I haven't plugged in everything, but the contractor came in and pumped out the water the last couple days. But I think when the show was getting closer the last couple days, the thought had crossed my mind, but then I thought it's still possible, and it's a good challenge to try to really put it all together. And I felt like I had enough of a plan that I had mentally been putting on this, paper in my head. And so I'm glad that, execution wise, it was approximately what I was trying to do.
It came out great, with all
Thank
the,
you.
with that big issue that happened, and you were still able to pull off a fantastic set. I love the visuals too. And did you have someone with your? It looks like you had two video cameras going on at the same time. Did you have?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So basically, I thought, earlier today, that a friend of mine, Rudy, who's in the chat room, Rudy Rude Boy, he had worked with me on a couple shoots, and so I was comfortable calling him up to ask him if he could come over and help me with the close-up camera, which I don't think I've ever had, actually, where you have someone who's actually on a tripod and moving the camera around and getting shots for you. I usually have a wide shot, and if I'm lucky, I'll have like one on over the shoulder or near the table, on the deck, that can get more of the closer shots of the rig. And so, thanks to Rudy for helping me out getting that together. And then the moment that it was done, I had to actually run out to a doctor's appointment, came back, and then I edited that thing in about 10 minutes. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
And then the rendering took like maybe 3 or 5 times longer than the editing did, because it was shot in 6K, and it had to be, I guess, rendered, then outputted to a 1080p H.264. So that took a while.
Wow. Man, you had a lot of obstacles to jump over, and you came out flawless. It was fantastic. It was awesome. So thanks for
Thank
sticking.
you. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I was really glad that it all kind of came together, more or less. But yeah, no, I thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And before we get into some other questions for you, let's jump on over to Andrew. Andrew, tell us about the visuals tonight. You had a fantastic set, and then you also had this beautiful montage of beautiful close-ups of some of the boutiques you have, and some really cool montage. Looks like some wonderful digital media as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, basically, I've been just through the pandemic, just collecting footage on my bike rides, riding around the city, collecting all kinds of video, right? With the idea of just kind of making videos, right? And then I kind of collected a bunch of oil wheel stuff and so forth from various locations. Yeah, so essentially I've got a kind of a library of stuff that I've collected over the last 3 years. So yeah, just some Premiere Magic, Adobe Premiere Magic, and doing some just some effects and so forth. Nothing really special per se, just collecting footage and arranging it. Yeah. So, but I'm glad you liked it. Yeah. I mean, I really love that. A lot of the oil wheel stuff and the oil lava lamps, and then some of the nature shots from here around Vancouver and the Pacific Northwest, all kind of featured in there. And then there was some footage of me playing live in there, etc. So yeah, it was good. I'm really glad you liked it. My wife was just watching it actually. She hadn't actually seen it, so she was like, "Whoa, that's great."
Excellent. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's
so.
good.
I love
Yeah.
a good montage.
What's that?
I love a good montage.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was interesting. Oh, the car. Did you notice the car wash in the second video?
I saw some soap. I wasn't sure what that was.
It's the local car wash where you can go and get this super lava foam.
So are you shooting through the car window while it's going through?
Yes.
Oh, that's fun. I love that stuff. I've been working at a coffee company, and
Yeah.
when I'm brewing coffee, with when I'm doing espresso, one of my favorite things is to just start filming the espresso just coming through the, and it's the most gorgeous colors of brown you've ever seen.
That's cool. Do you do it in slow mo?
I did.
Of course you did. Of course.
What kind of espresso machine are you using?
It's a Lamarco or Lamazarco.
Amazarco? Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's got 3 heads for brewing at once.
Oh, nice.
Nice big machine, pretty awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I've been using the sort of amateur type stuff for a while at Rocket and in our office, but I can never get the same kind of shots that you can get in a cafe. There's just not enough pressure coming through the group head.
Those machines, even for like home use, if you were going to get one of the smaller machines, are still very expensive and very heavy. Yeah, there's a lot of intricacies and piping that really goes into getting the right amount of pressure to get that coffee to correctly brew. And and the coffee company I'm working for is really unique because it's back when I first started learning how to do espresso a long time ago, it was totally different. Whereas like it wasn't as accurate as it is now. Like everything is to the gram, and we have a certain amount of brewing that we can that we're allowed to serve. It can be within X amount of seconds of brewing. Has to be the exact almost to the gram of servability, and to get that delicious flavor out of it. It's really specific. Which
and you have your timed extraction and everything.
Yes, it's pretty cool. And watching the espresso come out of the machine is just gorgeous. I've actually put up a couple of videos on YouTube through the past couple months that I've put into some of the stuff I've put up there, and you'll see it here and there. And haven't put it up specifically just as brewing because I don't want to tie myself to the company specifically with that stuff. So I've kind of thrown it into montages that I've done with like Lumen as well, so that you can't identify everything specifically.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
So let's get back to some other questions. Let's see here. Danny, I was curious to know more about Distortion Productions. Now, you and I met at Frank Martin's back porch for a wonderful modular jam session with Shonda, right? She was there, right?
Yeah, Shonda, Patrick, Larky.
Patrick, yeah.
And I think
that was this past summer, I think, right?
Yeah, it might have been August or September, something like that.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice day in Pacifica.
Yeah, it was nice. It was very warm.
You tell me a little bit about your company you've been working, your company, and some of the projects you've worked on over the years as a videographer. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about Distortion Productions and what you're doing out there.
So the company I started was back in 2006 when I was living in LA, in Hollywood. And I started the company because I needed to register a business to work as a freelance sound editor. And I was working as a sound editor on feature films and TV shows. And so I had interned at Hans Zimmer's studio, Media Ventures at the time. It's called Remote Control now. And I was assisting for a composer named Klaus Badelt he had just come off Pirates of the Caribbean, so he had basically nothing to do except have me work on his studio at home. But I'll fast forward because that was kind of I would say it was exciting, but sort of like an abusive environment for interns. Um, and so I was editing, I guess full time, and for about 5 years, when I was from about 2003 to 2009, and probably mostly like smaller independent features. And then around 2006, I started working on stuff for Fox and Paramount and different studios, like and Pathfinder was this movie for Fox with Carl Urban that was pretty big at the time. I spent, I think, like 5 months on that project, and I actually became union, and I joined. I became part of MPSE, and so around that time, I started shooting music videos and things. I shot a music video for a band from Detroit called Adult, um, and so that was a lot of fun. I actually went to their house in Detroit during the Movement Festival, and Adam he's like a part-time carpenter, and so he built this set on top of his skateboard half pipe in the garage. And so there was this little thing that looked like a house, living room. He had like a lampshade, a carpet. I think he even put drywall on it and wallpaper.
Wow.
And so at some point in the video, they're playing an organ, she's singing, and then zombies start punching into the walls, and blood starts coming out of like different parts of the wall and out of the lamp, and birds and things. These little lampshades, and someone pulls Nicola out of the set, and yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And I shot a lot of music videos for local independent musicians in LA. I think one of the periods that was very important in terms of maybe the synth community and for me personally was when I came back from Movement in 2008. I came back, and I used to be a DJ, and I used to be into techno and all these things. And then I went to a show in Hollywood. I think it was Droid Behavior or something. And I think Christian Smith was playing. And I just noticed that the vibe of the crowd was really different than, the underground sort of raves and shows that I had been to. And there were a bunch of these people that were in like tight shirts and jeans. And it was a very sort of samey type of environment. And I think I started looking for something else at that point that was more sort of challenging and interesting. And so I actually, it's sorry to get too long-winded, but I have a pretty funny story that I met some guy on Craigslist, and it was a sequencer for Juno 106. So I was very interested, but when I got there, he showed it to me and it didn't work. And then I noticed that he had a shelf full of circuit bent instruments. And so the thing that I went to buy from this guy didn't work, but in the process of going to his house, I, found out about circuit bent instruments, and then he invited me out to shows, and it kind of opened up a new world. So I got into circuit bent shows, and I think that in that community, I met people who had Eurorack and and live synth performances and of all different genres. So like loft parties, like Derek Basic and Wet Mango and people like that were all part of that community in downtown LA. And so I think that being able to find something that was very creative, and also I think people in that community were inspired by, and they did other things. They were multidisciplinary. They would do like art work, like traditional artwork, or like painting and visuals and stuff. And so there was anything from chip tuning to circuit bending, and like yeah, just all kinds of things, reel to reel. And so I feel like that was a very, very important turning point for me, at least.
So yeah, sounds like you got a wonderful experience and exposure to a different world that is modular and circuit bent and kind of the DIY style that I think a lot of us are really attracted to. People are bringing their talents together to create unique pieces, and it's not funded by anything. We're just doing it because we enjoy it.
Yeah, it's all about passion. And I think when you see people trying to do these things, I'm not sure about other people, but in the community, the synth community in particular, I find that a lot of people want to help each other. So I think that's the prevailing feeling that I get. I want to help a lot of people. And with the shows that I was putting on in San Jose, I felt like giving people a place to perform was important because I didn't really see a whole lot of local shows happening, especially in the South Bay.
Definitely, and that's something that Rich Hogman and I, when we first started doing Peak together in 2019, that was part of our idea, was to contribute to what was available in the Bay Area for electronic musicians. As you know, he and I bonded over synthesizers, modular being our main connection, because he and I just kind of ran into each other. We knew each other previously, but we ran into each other at a show in 2018 at the Laundry for Resident, and back when it's a little changed, a little different now, but we just kind of recognized each other in the crowd. We were just audience members enjoying the show, and then we just and that's when we realized that we were into the same thing basically. And then our friendship kind of grew, and realized that we could help grow that community. And similar to you, Danny, is we want to see people grow and help contribute to that nourishment. And to me, that's what Pete has been over the almost 4 years. And it's such a wonderful experience for me to talk to you, Andrew, and everybody that we've had on the show about the unique perspective that they have and what they're doing with their art form in not just Eurorack, but within electronic music and also in visuals. It's such a treat to see what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. I guess in the past maybe 2 to 3 years, after having done the Binary Society shows for about a couple of years intensely, I think I did, kind of burn out from trying to book bigger and bigger acts and trying to, raise the production value of things. It was just too time consuming, too expensive. Um, and and so I think I reassessed what I was doing, um, and whether it was the right direction for myself and the synth community at the same time. And so that's when I think I had the idea to do a book or a magazine, because a lot of the things that people put into a show visually or in a set, it's something that is sort of insular in the mind. And I don't think a lot of that thought process gets conveyed um, maybe elaborately enough for people to fully understand or even have um, a semblance of understanding of everything that goes into it. And maybe it is nice to have people who have a sort of fresh perspective on things, but to go beyond that and to have a deeper understanding, I felt that a magazine or a book where people could actually spend some time and read the thoughts of musicians, synth designers, visual artists, or even people who are in these fields that are somewhat connected, but maybe not directly synth people. And so, yeah, I had put together a magazine back in 2019 called Open Source, and I had like a lot of people involved with that. Endorphins, Robert Rich, and um, Bill Wyatrowski. But I think that it was a good test because it was only done in print. And so I went up to Portland to I printed 200 copies, and the reaction that I got from some people, like these shop owners, they were like, "Oh, well, we had like a brochure from Bastel that was free, and it looked like kind of like this." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know if a brochure from Bastel is quite the same as an article about all these different things about the creative process, and these are not like synth reviews per se. Like, when I put out the first open source, like a couple of months later, I guess Ellison put out Waveform magazine, and so um, you know, Waveform is great. They do a lot of reviews of synth um, products coming out and with different designers and musicians. But what I was trying to do was a bit different. I was, not as concerned about keeping up with everything coming out at the time or being timely. Just trying to do something. There are no page numbers, no dates, no references to those kind of things, and it was really trying to uh, get in the minds of the artists and um, was sort of like uh, a book or a magazine for artists, so that you know, uh, hopefully, it could inspire people to find something outside of maybe just like the synth community itself, and not being too insular. And with the second uh, follow up to that, it went from a 46-page magazine to like a 132-page hardcover book, and it's taken me a couple of years to kind of wrangle all this together. And but it's quite a bit more ambitious, and so I hope to wrap that up at some point in the first half of this year. And if I get it done in time, I'll go to Super Booth. But at the moment, it's going to be very challenging, kind of like the set, putting it together.
So, in anticipation for this upcoming release, are there back issues of open source available anywhere?
Because it was done in print, I only printed 200 copies. Maybe preceding the release of the second version or the edition, maybe I'll reprint the first one. I was thinking to make an anthology where I printed the first magazine and the second book together at some point, but we'll see.
Well, very good. I'm looking forward to that. And are there any online resources we could point our audience to keep updated on?
I would say that the open source SB Silicon Valley Instagram page is probably the main source of information for that. That used to be the Binary Society page, but I converted to open source. It's funny that toward the end of Binary Society in 2018, like the word binary, non-binary was starting to be starting to overlap, and then the idea of binary in relation to gender identity and things like that had negative connotations. So I changed the name of it to something that was almost like diametrically opposed to that, which is open source. And I think even with both, like open source is just a very, very generic, uh, phrase or term. And so I wanted to try to put my energy into making it, putting the meaning behind it.
Very good. You've got a wonderful compliment here from Patrick O'Brien, also known as POV,
Yeah.
saying, I played a couple of Danny's shows and they were some of my best sets. Must-see events.
Yeah. Patrick's set at the last open source show was about a year ago. It was, it was also one of the best performances I've hosted. And I hope to finish editing the video for it. It's just, I have, I think, 5 or 6 performances. They're all in, I think, 4K or 6K, and some of them are like 40 minutes to an hour long, and some of them, I mean, all of them have clips that are handheld, shaky, so I have to motion stabilize them. I've done one of the hardest things, which is to sync them, because the camera work was done where they stopped each clip like every 10 seconds or so. And normally you're supposed to film without breaking or cutting if it's a live performance. It's not a music video, so you've actually got to keep a continuous take so that you can just lay one here, and then you've got the master audio recording, and then it's all synced together. So that is very much not the approach that I'm following right now, which is I've got like just dozens of little clips. They're all handheld, requiring motion stabilization. And then I've got maybe like one wide shot that all those little clips are supposed to be cut on, but there's not enough coverage to do beginning to end. And so I've got like the middle, maybe 80% of each set, because some of the clips were started late. Some of them were ended early. So it's just a conundrum, but I think the overall result is going to be pretty good. One of the things that I taught myself how to do during these shows was to do laser visuals, and I think because the sort of stationary aspect of synth performance in general, visuals are a very integral part of the shows. And so I think lasers are something that are very much in the moment. You can't really duplicate the experience of a laser virtually or, on video. So if you're there in person and you're watching a laser, there's really nothing like it. You can't really reproduce that experience beyond that moment. And so to me, that made it worth doing or learning about.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing the next one at some point. It's just those shows, they're very exciting, but they also take a lot out of you.
They definitely do. Doing live shows, my past experiences have been they can be nerve-wracking. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it can be a big issue. The bigger your crew, so it can also be an issue, but the smaller the crew, it can be with a tighter crew, it can be a bit more seamless. So it's a bit of a toss up here and there depending on how big or how small you want to go. it's always that is kind of one of those issues you're always dealing with, especially if you're working in a venue that you're renting out and you're working with probably an in-house sound engineer who's working with live mixing as well, and that can be an issue. But please keep us informed of the next time you plan to do one. I'd be happy to help you out with whatever I can do in my little.
No, I really appreciate it. It's I guess quite often I find that I have to bring the sound system, so it would be nice to have an in-house sound engineer, but really, I think we all have to wear so many hats in the process of putting on a show. But I think what makes it worth it, is the look on people's faces and the experience that you're providing to people who either they're very familiar with it and you're doing a lot to try to take things further in terms of their experience, and then for people who are unfamiliar to it, I find that a lot of those people coming in from usually the events I've put on are at the first Friday events in downtown San Jose, and so people will walk in from the street. They might not have as much experience or exposure to live synth performances, and so it's always great to you get those sort of few people that it's really made a difference to them in terms of what direction they're going with their view and love for music, and so I think that is what makes it worth it.
I think so too. And let's jump on over to Andrew. Andrew, what has been your experience out in your area in Vancouver with going to live shows, performing? Have you any stories you would like to share, or any upcoming events you would like to let us know about?
So I live in Vancouver, Canada, which is fairly near Seattle, Seattle, Washington. So obviously with the pandemic, obviously a lot of the stuff was taken down. I don't know what it was like in San Francisco, but certainly I feel like in Canada, Vancouver, Canada, things really started opening up around May, maybe June. So it's quite late of this year. So still brought a lot down and started going. So things have started kicking in. There's not too much of a synth scene, surprisingly, here in Vancouver, which is surprising given that a bunch of modular people are here. So broadly, I've been gravitating towards Seattle, where there's a really good modular scene. In fact, there's a lot of amazing artists down there, and a lot of them frequent Seattle Modular, which is where I kind of play periodically, which is great. I have a lot of great friends in Seattle. I used to live in Seattle, actually, and I've got a lot of my best friends are down there, so I go down and I stay with them, and we have a great time going to shows. And they're in bands, actually, mainly rock bands, really great rock bands. But they also love synth, so they can obviously come to synth shows with me and so forth. Seattle's got a really good scene. Seattle Modular is really good. A lot of great folks run that, and they're really awesome events. And it echoes a lot of what DSKO was saying. There's a really good community vibe there. There's a lot of really amazingly creative people, very supportive, and it's very much a really high caliber, high performance. Sound like a manager now. I am a manager. High performance, really amazing creative people. So you see a lot of things going on, like a lot of variety in like self-expression, creativity around like design of synthesizers, modules, hardware, even the gear they bring in. I mean, you see it all, right? From just straight up laptop performance to like the most bonkers module you'll ever seen, and a lot of all that, and it's really good. And they have some really good light synth people actually. There's a team that do the visuals and they're very, very good. They're awesome. So yeah, same kind of thing, same kind of setup from what Disco was describing. Great atmosphere, great supportive scene, a lot of creative people there. We're very nurturing and welcoming, and it's a really good event. It's in a club actually in north of Seattle called the Substation, and they graciously host those events. And yeah, people will turn up and play. And there's some really good musicians. In fact, there's some really good ones. Particularly, I really love a guy called Davnak. He specializes kind of in actually really interesting a lot of OPZ performances, teenage engineering OPZ kind of style. Amazing. He's got some YouTubes how he basically makes his music on the OPZ, how he mixes it. Really impressive, Davnak. If you want to message me on Instagram, I'll be more than happy to show you his Instagram. He's amazing. There's a really, really cool guy, actually, which is almost reminds me of a little bit goth. It's Cold Wave. Cold Wave. Kind of mixed with Joy Division, kind of mixed with Dark 80s kind of vibe. Night of Owl. Brilliant dude. He plays down there fairly often. In fact, my friends, Accidental Stuntmen in Seattle, they're probably watching, hopefully. They're playing a show at Georgetown. Jules May and Night of Owl is playing with them. So if there's anyone from Seattle, yeah, should definitely go watch that show. I think it's end of January, so maybe look it up. Night of Owl, Accidental Stuntmen. Shield, another fantastic modular artist. He's amazing. Bike Monday, amazing. And Leluz, that's another kind of amazing guy. So I'm probably not naming enough, but there's a lot of great people there. So really, yeah, just kind of orbiting around Seattle because there's not much of a scene here, surprisingly. Having said that, I did come across the Vancouver Synth Society, and yeah, so unfortunately the guy at the back end I did play there, and the guy is actually going to study, so he's looking for a few people to take it over. So myself and another guy is going to help take it over. So that's kind of like a community-based funded show. So for example, if you live in a community, and I don't know, maybe it is the case in San Francisco, but certainly in Vancouver, if you live in a community and you're an artist and you want to put on an event, the city has grants that you can apply for. And as long as they give you a bunch of money, but you got to spend the money in the community. So you spend the money in your neighborhood, and you get artists from your neighborhood, and you just kind of kick it all in and get it going, right? So we're hoping to get that going this year. So yeah, so hopefully that takes off. I'm looking to help take that over. Yeah, other than that, yeah, definitely got some good ideas there and some inspirations from the Seattle guys. Definitely looking forward to like doing outdoor modular things in some amazing nature spots that we have here in BC, British Columbia. Maybe some of the community parks, certainly some of the clubs, and just really kind of getting everyone at it, DIY, like we're doing here. Just no computers, just get on the hardware and just bang out some tunes, right? Bang out some sequences, get the performance element going, and yeah, and it's live and interfacing with these machines as they were intended, right? I think that's kind of a big element for me, actually. Why I actually have a computer programming background. I'm a computer programmer, but as I approach my music and the synthesizers, definitely don't want computers involved. It's like, in a sense, that's kind of why I went to the Roland boutiques. I always wanted them, could never afford them as a kid, right? Should have bought them then. They're worth a bazillion now, but obviously. But you never afford them, and kind kind of too tight. I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of too tight to buy myself things. My wife is like, "Hey, you should buy yourself some of this. You love this stuff." All right, yeah, I'll do that. So anyway, I kind of bought this stuff and like purposely did not want computers involved in this. So he's like, "Hey, let's get this hardware. Let's interface with the hardware. Super wonky, super quirky, super bonkers user experience. You know, your relationship with these devices, even just interfacing with these devices is a project, right? It's a project. You got to learn how to do it. It's worse than working your 1980s washing machine. You know, these things are different. So that's a project itself. But I think that kind of struggle, that kind of difficulty breeds creativity, right? So it's like you kind of break it down, throw all the complications away, the computers, you know, whatever, get it all out the window, get 3 devices, it's really basic, get some patches, interface with the machines as they were intended, think of it in that way. 16 track sequences, step sequences, maybe 1, maybe 2, create sounds, and then just kind of like blend in those sounds, right? And that's the whole performance element, right? And I think, yeah, that's it for me personally. So that's my approach, and you know, I see that on a lot of people like DSKO, probably a lot of the modular people. Obviously, they do that, and it's basically like DIY, back to basics, interface with the machines as they were intended, and just kind of get some humanization out of them. You know, like some emotional elements, some really interesting sounds, and just kind of build up those moments out of like basically nothing, out of like 16 steps on 3 things, you know, repeating. You know, so that's kind of for me. I am a massive fan actually of drone music, right? So not so much drone in the, you know, classic sense, but I think what's really interesting here in the Pacific Northwest, and I talked about this before, you know, I don't know if you guys have been to the PNW. Have you guys been up there?
PNW.
To where?
Pacific Northwest, sorry.
Oh yeah. I've been to Portland quite a bit.
Okay, yeah. So that's cool. Have you been up here, Corey?
I went to the first Velocity in 2019.
Excellent. So anyway, you know, I think, you know, we have a lot of mountains, forests, and so forth. But what in the back text of kind of all this, and might say the grunge scene in Washington State, we have a lot of atmosphere, right? And so we have an amazing band from Olympia, and then maybe Seattle afterwards. It's called Earth. Talked about these before. So really, Earth is. I think we started up in 1989. It started off probably like, you know, as you'd expect, like big old distorted guitars, big drawn out sounds. But essentially, they basically moved into a drone sound. So they moved into some kind of like sweeter, more melodic kind of drone sound, picking up the kind of the atmosphere of this region. And really, that's been really inspirational to me over the years. And I still listen to them a lot and still kind of hear things in them. And I actually went to watch them in Seattle recently. It was amazing. But yeah, I'm drawing a lot out of that. A lot of the drum music, and that kind of features in my sounds quite a bit, right? You know, kind of those repeating pans, changing the sounds, letting it all build up. Yeah. So yeah.
Very cool, Andrew. Thanks, man. Yeah, you know, when you mentioned Substation, I you know, right away, I remembered going to Velocity because it was hosted at Substation.
Yeah,
and it was really wonderful because in 2019, my girlfriend and I had vacationed in July in Seattle that year. It was our first trip to Seattle and to experience the city. And I already had made some connections with like Ellison Wolf and what's his name, who does Popular Modcast. I can't remember his name right now. Tim Held. Thank you. And so I got to meet up with them and hang out with them and for a little bit. You know, we had a nice dinner and afternoon together, and they said, "Hey, we're doing Velocity in later on in the year in I think it was either September or October, and
Yeah.
they said you should come back up for that," and we did. So I got to go to
Yeah.
Seattle twice in 1 year, and it was phenomenal. I had a wonderful time. I can't wait to go back. It's been some years now, but of course I couldn't make the last Velocity that happened earlier this year, which
Yeah.
and it was fantastic, and it was such and from my perspective, it was one of the best shows I've ever been, best events I've ever been to for modular, for synthesizers, and also as an event photographer because I volunteered to just come up and shoot as well, alongside some of my other friends who do that too.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Dorian Gunnels, who's
Mm.
also who now lives also in Vancouver. He and I we went up with kind of like a group of he and I and another friend of ours, Matt Bidoff. We all got a Airbnb together and stayed together. So it was a group of us, people from from the San Francisco Bay Area who traveled up to Seattle to go check out the show, and brought our cameras. We took
Brilliant.
we took photos everywhere, and the coolest thing about it was there were no constraints. We had free range to go pretty much anywhere and shoot anything we wanted. And as a photographer of over 20 years, that was the only event that I've ever had that experience. Like I've shot shows where you have to have a wristband that says you are the photographer, but you have to stand in this one section and shoot the band with no flash, stuff like that. But with there, and of course, I wouldn't shoot a flash on a show anyway. But the point is that I could go anywhere and it was fun.
Yeah.
There was
Really?
nothing wrong with me going anywhere. I could get multiple angles. I could take some video. I could shoot throughout a whole set. It was a wonderful experience, and I got to meet so many people that I had met already online, mostly through Instagram. Like what was his name? John I. Rice, or John L. Rice. I'm not too. I think it's I. Rice, who's in Tacoma, and
Mm.
didn't even realize who he was until he and I started, getting more in depth into a conversation about synthesizers. And then I met some other people who are from the Bay Area that I had not met yet, and got to meet them at Velocity. It was a wonderful experience of connecting with like-minded people. It was such
Yeah.
a fantastic event.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, those guys are amazing. Like those Sid Velocity guys is so much of it. They've kind of passed on the torch a little bit, like they moved on to other things, but they're still doing the Velocity. Those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
The genuine community builders, like yourself, actually, with this thing, of course. But
Thank you.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, they're great.
And speaking of people who are building communities, our friend Frank Martin, who most of us know, he and a group of some other wonderful musicians got together in the summer and put together this wonderful movie called Modular California Vibes, and they actually did they did a premiere at the second Synthplex earlier this year in Burbank, California, and they did a showing of it at the Gray Area Theater here in San Francisco. And hopefully, they got a good audience to come out and check out what they had been doing. It's this beautiful documentary that unfortunately I have not yet the pleasure to watch yet. Hopefully, I'll get to watch it soon. But it's something I wanted to let everyone know it's out there, and hopefully we'll be able to buy copies of it somewhere soon down the road.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Sounds good. Did you guys see Sisters with Transistors? Have you seen that documentary?
No.
Oh yeah, I think it's
I
on
haven't seen it
Crave
yet.
on HBO. It's basically women in synthesizers. Delia Derbyshire, amazing. It goes on. The list is mega long. It's really, really cool. You guys should watch that.
Yeah,
I will.
absolutely.
Thank you. As we're getting close to our 9 o'clock cutoff, we've got a few more minutes, but I wanted to let everyone know of a couple other things. So this month in San Francisco, our friend Steve Pye, who is a video artist, he has some of his work on the Salesforce Tower being projected. So and I'm not sure what the hours are really, but if you get a chance, you'll get to see some of his modular video projected on the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco this month.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it would be great if someone's actually pointing a camera at that and getting some video or something for the rest of us.
I hope so.
It's going to be around the clock on the tower, or is it going to be limited?
Good question. I don't know the hours. Usually when I'm up in the morning going to work, there's nothing on it at 5 in the morning. But so maybe it's in that time sort of showing. So hopefully I'll get to see it a little later on. I want to let everyone know about Steve Pye's work up on that, and also I wanted to do a special thanks to Ship Alba, who just released a new song on SoundCloud, and she has been doing all of the music, or I guess Rich has been using her music for Piqued for the intros and the outros, but there's a new song that she put out recently, and I believe he used it for the intro to today. And we might be hearing a little bit more of that song later on when the show ends. And I want to give great thank you to Shabalba for always making amazing art in music. And she is also, Andrea, as you mentioned about OPZs, she uses 2 OPZs to make her music. And she's fantastic.
Like that.
Really great stuff. And if you want to learn more about her, she's on SoundCloud. I should probably drop a link to her SoundCloud so people can find her.
Yeah, right.
It was not the easiest thing to write. So I'll drop that a little later, or maybe Rich can do that as I'm babbling. And as I'm continue to babble, there was something. Oh yes, and before we close the show tonight, I want to let everyone know that next month, February 15th, we're going to have 2 other artists, of course, Cinsario and Vo Flores performing for us. So I'm looking forward to having them on the show. Haven't had the chance to actually meet either of them in person yet, but I've had some nice communication with both of them, and we've already got that show set up for February 15th next month. So that's good. That's looking forward to that. It should be really fun. And hopefully, and Frank has just let us know that Resident will be this Thursday, January 26th at 8 p.m. And that should be at Noise Bridge in San Francisco. So, and as we're getting close to our cutoff, Danny, Andrew, I want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight. You guys have been wonderful to talk to. Such great resources and wonderful music and visuals tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Disco. Thank you, Corey. Amazing.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it's great to be on the show. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, it's been a real treat, Danny, to get to know you a little bit more this time around, seeing as I think we connected pretty well earlier this year. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you produce later on, and hopefully we can collaborate on something in the future.
Yeah,
Andrew,
absolutely.
Likewise. And Andrew, likewise, thanks for reaching out to me and letting me know that you had this new set you wanted to show us. It was really cool.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Great. So, are there any other events or anything coming up either of you would like to let us know about before we sign off for tonight?
Accidental Stuntman playing in Seattle, January 27th. Night of Owl, Accidental Stuntman, Jules, Meg, George Sam. Anyone from Seattle, you should go.
Very cool. Danny, anything coming up for you?
Mostly just focusing on finishing up Open Source 2, the book. And so once I'm done with that, I think there will probably be at least one show that I'll be planning in conjunction with that. And then I'll probably be traveling a bit to promote it. So might end up in the Northwest. Maybe I'll run into Andrew up there at some point.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, absolutely. It'd be great to hang out.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, you guys, so much. Thanks to everyone watching tonight. I was trying to plug the show at work today, so hopefully some of my coworkers get to watch it as well. We'll see. And thanks to everyone from myself and Rich Hogben. This has been Piqued number 40, which is pretty amazing. Everyone, stay home and stay safe. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.